Alice sat on the couch with her best friend. She felt attracted, but she was still hesitant. But her hesitation stopped when Daniel stood right in front of her, stroked her cheek, and Alice had always been the kind of woman who loved with all her heart. She lived in the vibrant, sun-kissed streets of Los Angeles, surrounded by the hum of the city that never slept, a city where dreams were born and sometimes shattered. At 24, she had already tasted the sweetness of love, of romance and passion. But something about her relationship with Daniel, her best friend, felt different. They had known each other since college, and he had always been there for her. The one person who understood her in a way no one else did. He was black, tall, with a smooth, muscular frame that seemed to command the room, his eyes always full of warmth, a quiet strength that contrasted her own fiery nature. But tonight, just days before her wedding, everything had changed. It wasn't supposed to happen. She had come over to Daniel's apartment to talk things over, to share some of her nerves and worries. The pressure of her upcoming marriage to Peter, the man who seemed perfect on paper but never quite sparked the fire in her heart, was starting to weigh on her. Daniel's place was familiar and comforting. The cozy, dimly lit living room, the soft smell of his cologne mixed with the faint scent of something earthy. All of it made her feel safe, as though she could shed the weight of the world for just a few hours. They sat together on the couch, talking about everything and nothing. She laughed at his jokes, feeling the usual warmth that radiated from him. But tonight, something felt different. There was a tension in the air, an electric undercurrent between them that she hadn't noticed before. It started subtly, the way his hand brushed against hers when he passed her a glass of wine, the way his gaze lingered just a little too long. Alice felt her heart race, her breath catch in her throat. It was then that she realized something. The spark she had been missing with Peter, the connection she had been searching for, was right here, right in front of her. She tried to push the thought away, but it wouldn't go. Not with Daniel looking at her like that, with his eyes darkened with something she couldn't quite place. She could feel the heat between them rising, the space between them closing as if gravity was pulling them together. Before she knew it, he was leaning in, his lips brushing against hers in a soft, hesitant kiss. The world seemed to stop, and for a brief moment, she couldn't remember why she was hesitating, why she was planning to marry someone else. The kiss deepened and everything else faded away. The wedding, Peter, the life she had planned. It was just her and Daniel, caught in something far more intoxicating than she had ever imagined. Her heart was pounding in her chest as his hands moved to her waist, pulling her closer. She could feel the heat of his body against hers, the strength in his arms, and it made her pulse race even faster. Alice tried to break the kiss, but something inside her wouldn't let her. She wanted him. She needed him. And for the first time in a long time, she felt alive. Daniel didn't pull away either. He seemed to be as caught up in the moment as she was, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he kissed her again, more urgently this time. She could feel the intensity of his desire, and it matched her own, pulling her deeper into something she had been too afraid to explore. She had never allowed herself to feel this way before, never let herself be so consumed by passion. But now, with him, there was no room for fear, no room for doubts. All she could feel was the heat between them, the way his hands moved with such surety, as though he had always known how to touch her, how to make her tremble. His lips trailed down her neck, sending shivers down her spine, and Alice closed her eyes, losing herself in the sensations. She let go of everything, the wedding, the expectations, the life she had been preparing for. All that mattered was the way Daniel made her feel, the way his touch made her forget everything else. When he pulled away for a moment, his eyes met hers, filled with something raw, something powerful. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice low and husky. She didn't hesitate. She nodded, unable to put into words what she was feeling. The need, the want, it was all too much to ignore. And with that, he kissed her again. this time with an intensity that left no room for hesitation. Time seemed to blur as they moved together, their bodies speaking a language that needed no words. Alice had never felt so desired, so completely consumed by someone. And in that moment, she didn't care about the consequences. She didn't care that she was days away from walking down the aisle to marry someone else. All she cared about was the way Daniel made her feel, the way he made her burn with passion, as if everything she had been holding back had finally been set free. They didn't even make it to the bedroom. The couch became their world, and the low hum of the city outside the windows faded into nothing. Daniel's hands explored her body with a tenderness that made her ache even more, every touch igniting a fire under her skin. Alice clung to him, her fingers tangled in his short, tight curls, pulling him closer, needing more of him. More of this feeling she had craved without even realizing it. His mouth found hers again, and their kiss grew rougher, more desperate, as if they were trying to make up for years of pretending they were just friends. She could feel his heartbeat pounding against her chest, matching the frantic rhythm of her own. Every inch of her skin burned where he touched, and when his hands slipped under the hem of her t-shirt, she gasped against his mouth but didn't stop him. She wanted this. She wanted him. The way he moved, the way he touched her. It wasn't rushed or clumsy. It was slow, deliberate, like he was memorizing every curve, every shiver, every breath. His hands slid over her waist, her hips, making her feel like she was the only woman in the world. The heat between them was suffocating and delicious all at once, and she couldn't get enough. Alice's clothes found their way to the floor piece by piece, and every kiss, every caress stripped away more than just fabric. It stripped away her doubts, her fears, her guilt. She should have felt wrong. She should have stopped. But instead, she surrendered to the moment, letting the passions sweep her away like a tidal wave. Daniel lifted her easily, carrying her as if she weighed nothing. He looked into her eyes again, searching, making sure she still wanted this. She kissed him hard in response, her answer clear. He carried her to his bedroom, laying her down with a gentleness that made her chest tighten with something deeper than just desire. It felt like love, real love, the kind she had never dared to believe she deserved. The sheets were cool against her overheated skin, and Daniel hovered over her, his gaze tracing every inch of her body like she was something precious. Alice reached up, pulling him down to her, needing the contact, needing to feel him against her. Their bodies came together, fitting like they were always meant to, and she gasped at the sensation, the overwhelming rush of emotions crashing over her. He moved slowly at first, his hands and mouth everywhere, taking his time, savoring every moment. Alice arched into him, moaning softly, her fingers digging into his shoulders. She felt like she was floating, weightless, lost in a haze of pleasure and emotion. Every kiss, every touch drove her higher, closer to something she hadn't even known she was missing. Daniel whispered her name against her skin, his voice rough and full of emotion, and it broke something open inside her. She wrapped her arms around him tighter, pulling him closer, needing him in a way that had nothing to do with the physical and everything to do with the way he made her feel seen, understood, loved. When the final wave of pleasure crashed over her, it left her trembling and breathless in his arms, her heart hammering in her chest. Daniel held her close, his forehead resting against hers, their breaths mingling in the small space between them. For a long moment, they just stayed like that, wrapped around each other, their bodies still humming with the aftermath of what they had just shared. Alice closed her eyes, savoring the feel of his arms around her, the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. She had never felt more safe, more cherished, more alive. She knew deep down that everything had changed. There was no going back. She couldn't marry Peter. She couldn't pretend anymore. Slowly, Daniel lifted his head, his eyes searching hers. "Stay," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. Alice didn't even have to think about it. She nodded, a small, shaky smile breaking across her lips. She belonged here, with him, where she had always belonged, even if it had taken her this long to realize it. Daniel pulled her closer, kissing her softly, reverently, as if sealing a promise between them. And as she drifted off to sleep in his arms, Alice knew that she had found something far greater than what she had been chasing. She had found real love. Passionate, messy, beautiful love. And she wasn't going to let it go. Morning crept into the room through the half-open blinds, casting soft lines of sunlight across the tangled sheets. Alice blinked against the light, the slow, lazy comfort of waking in Daniel's bed wrapping around her like a warm tide. For a brief, blissful second, she forgot everything. Forgot the white dress hanging in her closet. Forgot the guest list. Forgot Peter. Then it all slammed back into her chest. Her heart raced as she lay there, Daniel's arm heavy across her waist, his body pressed against hers like they had been molded together through the night. The events of last night flashed in sharp, vivid fragments, the way he touched her, the way he whispered her name, the way she gave herself over without a second thought. She had crossed the line. No, she had shattered it, burned it down. She had betrayed Peter. But as Daniel stirred beside her, pressing a soft kiss against her bare shoulder, a different kind of guilt gnawed at her. The guilt of ever pretending she could have loved anyone the way she loved Daniel. She turned to face him and he was already awake, his dark eyes heavy with something more than lust now, something deeper. His fingers traced lazy patterns along her hip, sending little shivers down her spine. She should have pulled away. She should have run, but she didn't. She leaned into him instead, craving more of his touch, more of the way he made her feel like she was the only thing that mattered. The guilt twisted deeper, sharper, but it didn't stop her when Daniel kissed her again. Slow, deliberate, filled with a kind of hunger that had nothing to do with just physical need. His kiss said it all. He wasn't sorry. And if she was honest with herself, neither was she. He pulled her closer, their bodies finding that same perfect rhythm, that same connection that made her forget the rest of the world. She gasped against his mouth, her nails digging into his back, holding on like he was the only real thing she had left. Every touch, every kiss felt like a deeper betrayal of the life she was supposed to be heading toward. But it also felt like the first real thing she had ever known. Afterward, they lay tangled together again, the room heavy with the scent of them, with the echoes of everything they couldn't say out loud yet. Daniel traced his fingers through her hair, his touch tender, almost possessive, like he knew she was his now, even if she hadn't said it. "You can't marry him," he said quietly, his voice vibrating against her skin. Alice squeezed her eyes shut, the weight of the truth settling over her like a second skin. She had betrayed Peter, not just with her body, but with her heart, long before she even realized it. And no matter how much she tried to rationalize it, to soften it, the reality was brutal. She had fallen for another man just days before she was supposed to say, "I do." A bitter laugh bubbled up in her throat. "I know," she whispered. "God, Daniel, I know." He shifted, pulling back just enough to look into her eyes. "Then don't pretend. Don't walk down that aisle, just because it's what everyone expects." Tears burned at the back of her throat, but she forced them down. She nodded instead, a fierce little motion, like she was grabbing her own life back by the throat. "I can't," she said, her voice breaking a little. "I won't." Daniel kissed her forehead, wrapping her tighter in his arms like he could shield her from the fallout that was coming. And maybe he could. Maybe, for once, she wasn't alone. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other, the morning sliding toward noon without either of them moving. Eventually she sat up, pulling the sheet around her as if it could protect her from the avalanche about to crash into her life. "I have to tell him," she said. Daniel nodded, no hesitation, no judgment, just steady, unwavering support. "I'll be here when you do." Alice looked at him, really looked at him, and knew with every fibre of her being that she had made the right choice. Maybe not the easy one, definitely not the clean one, but the right one. And for the first time in what felt like forever, she felt free.